Okay, so let's review where we were last week. We created a demo jdbc application, right? And we created a movie data object, data model, right? That captured title, IMDb, plot, poster, and setters and getters for each one of them, and a constructor to instantiate them. Yes? Okay. We also created a data access object for being able to manipulate them, right? We use jdbc and connected to the remote database on AWS. Here I changed it so that it connects to my local database on my machine, right? And with my username and password. We also implemented it as a singleton, where we get the instance of this movie DAO, and then we implemented several finder methods. I think we got find all movies, and we implemented the queries for each one of these, where we get the jdbc driver. We create an SQL query and we execute it, and then we iterate over the result set, instantiating each movie as we iterate, and then return the movie. Same thing for movie. You can retrieve them by primary key. We did the same thing, but in this case we are retrieving just one. So don't forget to do the .next, otherwise you won't be able to read it. Create. We created an insert statement based on a prepared statement. Right, notice that some of them are not prepared statements. Some of them were. Oh no! Oh, did we use prepared statements everywhere? Awesome, excellent. I thought we didn't. Create statements. So we update. We have a delete and also an update, right? And we're able to update a movie by primary key. Let's see. We ran that from our main. Right, when we ran it every time, but then we started looking at other ways of interacting with this. Right, a better way to interact with this was to perhaps expose this this DAO to the outside world, right, through an API, right, just like IMDb exposes their data through RESTful APIs. We too can expose our data through APIs. So to do that, we started working on this on a movie service that allowed us to annotate our class as a controller, as a RESTful controller that listened for incoming get, post, put, delete from the outside world. We mapped several of these functions to these URLs. And we said, /API/movie. We mapped it to find all movies, and then I don't believe we worked on the create movie, did we? I don't believe we did that. So we'll talk about that today. But notice that these APIs are going to have a particular structure, right? They have a particular syntax, right? It's just not these URLs. Can't be just anything. Right? We need to agree so that we have a common language on how we make data available on the network. Okay? A common syntax for these URLs is that they start with an agreed upon a suffix or prefix. Okay? Like for instance /API, right? Or /REST or /data. As long as we all agree, right, on what that prefix is. And the reason that we choose a prefix is to agree on what the intent of this URL is, right? To distinguish this URL from human consumable content, right? Because typically when we think about accessing something on the web, commonly we expect HTML or some other static content that is meant for human consumption, right? This content is not for human consumption, right? This content is coming back as actual data, data that is meant to be consumed by some other program, right? By some algorithm, right? That is meant to consume this array of movies, maybe for display purposes or for whatever, for some other computation. Make sense? So the slash API is meant for distinguishing this URL separate from other types of URL that might actually be some index page or some HTML document. Make sense? Right? And this is just a convention. It's not a standard. It's that we all agree, right, as developers of a particular team, that everything that is meant for data, we're going to pre-pen with API. Make sense? All right. Then it follows that the next token is based on the entity that or the resource that you're trying to retrieve. Okay, what we're trying to do is expose resources on the network, right, and to make them available as a unique identifier, right? That's why we have URLs, right? URLs are you have a particular protocol, HTTP, have a particular port, have a particular domain, right, or IP address, and then slash whatever path you want to use to uniquely identify the resource that you're retrieving. Most commonly, we're more familiar with static content such as HTML documents, right, being on a web server. Yes, but that's not the only resource that we can make available on the network. We can make anything available, right, including data. So this indeed is a resource, and we're posting it at slash API slash movie. So movie tells me the entity type typically is the type of the entity that I'm retrieving. Yes, and also notice that by default this is mapped to an HTTP method get. Retrieve data. Right, what are we retrieving? Slash movie. Which movie? I'm not telling you which movie. So the interpretation is that you must mean all the movies. Okay, since we're not specifically telling which movie because we're not identifying it by its unique identifier, you must mean all movies. And indeed, this returns a list of movies. Make sense? So this API, this URL that you see there, retrieving the list of movies is not by accident; it's by design. Yes. So in the next assignment, not the jdbc assignment, but the next assignment, you'll be asked to do something similar, right? Where you're going to provide APIs, and the syntax has to follow a particular convention. Okay. All right. So that's slash API slash movie. What does it do? It uses the movie DAO, the single instance movie DAO, to retrieve all the movies. The other one down below. It's a map. Notice that it's mapped to the same exact URL slash API slash movie, but it's mapped to a different request method, post. Right. By default, it's get. If we don't say which method, it's understood that it's get. Right. That's the default. If we want other methods, we need to explicitly say that we want a post. Meaning, here we're listening for a get and a post to the same URL. Okay, and we distinguish it by the browser either submitting a get or submitting a post. Okay, and it'll either execute the first one or execute the second one. All right, so if we post, what's it going to do? Presumably, it will send us. If we we mapped it to a function called create movie, right? As the name suggests, we're creating a new movie. Where does this movie come from? Presumably, somebody sent it to us over the wire. Right, as an HTTP post, right, encoded as presumably JSON, and embedded in as part of the body of the request of the HTTP request. So we can parse it from the body using another annotation, request body. Right, this says parse it from the body, right, and pass it to me as an instance of movie. Okay, and then once I have it, I'm going to get a hold of the movie DAO instance, and then I'm gonna execute create movie, passing the movie as a parameter. Make sense? Right? Now this function here We could test, right? If we run it, right? Since browsers can readily generate a get, right? Whenever you type a URL at the URL window of a browser, it generates a get, right? So naturally it generates a get, but a browser can't readily generate a post. Okay? It can only generate a get from the URL. So we can generate that. Let's see. So we just say localhost 8080 and API movie. It comes back with a list of movies, right? Some boring movies titles there, and those are the movies that I have in my database here. I think it's this one. And again, it's not retrieving it. It was working at home. It's supposed to be something with a network. Okay, those two movies are in there. Believe me. Believe me. Okay, so it retrieves those two movies, but there's no way for me to generate a post if I want to generate a new movie, right? So instead, what we're going to do is that we're going to be using a tool called Postman. Okay, this tool is very useful. Not in this assignment, but the next assignment, I asked you to install Postman. That allows you to create these URLs, right, and generate them from this tool. So for instance, here I have find all movies. There's my get. I can generate localhost API movie. I can send that, and here's the response that came back from the server. Yes, it's the same thing I did from the browser, but I can do it from this tool. Right? But not only can I generate gets, I can also generate posts. So here's my post. Here's another one that I created. You can create any number of these requests, so you can test your APIs. This is a great tool for testing your APIs when you don't have a UI. If there's no user interface, you can at least interact and see if the data is going back and forth correctly. So in this post, notice that it's the same exact URL, right? But the method is post. Also, notice that we in the headers we're also passing in the headers we're passing in content time. Say that telling the whoever's receiving this, we're saying, hey, we are passing some data, right? And it's encoded in this format. Okay? And we say that it's encoded in application/JSON, right? So that the server knows what to do with the data, right? Because otherwise, again, data all by itself means nothing until you tell me a context. Remember the example, if I give you 10 numbers, 10 random numbers, you don't know what to do with them until I tell you what they are. If I tell you that's a phone number, you know you can call it, right? If I tell you it's a social security number, you can text me, right? So the same exact piece of data means different things depending on the context. So we have to tell it what the context is, right? That it's an application JSON. Then it knows how to interpret the body, how to interpret this, this random character string, right? So let's create another movie title 345, poster 345, plot, and IMDb 345. So if I do a send, it comes back with a 1 saying that yes, there was one record created. And if I go to my find all movies and I send a get request, notice that I have those 3 movies in there. Make sense? And same thing with my browser. If I refresh, I have all my 3 movies. Make sense? All right. So from now on, we're just going to use poster. Right? And in your next assignment, you're asked to use poster for testing your APIs. Okay. All right. Great. So let's maybe create a couple more. Well, let's create maybe now that we have find all movies, we need to find one movie, and we need to find we need to update, and we need to delete. Right. We'll do that in the next video.